March is here, so get ready for all the madness that this month has to offer.
We're telling you what's springing up with Trojan Athletics. Let's get this party started.
Welcome back to Sports Scene in Studio C of the Julie Chen, Leslie Moonves, and CBS Media Center in the Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. I'm Ken Masenchi.
Good job, Ken. I'm Evan Budrovich here. The Trojans are back in business on the football field, and this team is looking to temper some early top 5 expectations. It's time for kickoff.
Spring football practice kicked off Tuesday, and the high expectations for next year are already being felt on the field. The Trojans are coming off a 9-4 season that was capped off by an impressive victory in the Holiday Bowl. But that is in the past, as the hype surrounds a team that added a top 3 recruiting class to the mix just a month ago.
Hype, the game, training camp, all that stuff is so far down the road. We can't worry about that stuff. We needed to focus on today. And I thought all in all, as a team, for the most part, we really did a good job of that.
You know, we got a lot to work on. We got a lot to improve on, and we've got a long, long way to go, you know, to be to where we want to be by the time we go into fall camp or go into season, or even, you know, just in spring off the right way. So I think day one, you know, guys were definitely going in the right direction as a team, and then individually, guys, you know, made a lot of plays today, which is cool to see.
The Trojans will practice for a month in preparation for the spring game on April 11th.
Time to dive into the biggest storylines making noise on Cromwell Field as USC enters its second year under Coach Steve Sarkisian. Well, first of all, they welcome Bob Connolly to the offensive line. The Trojans have a young but experienced group featuring returning center Max Turek. If freshman Toa Lobanon can hold down the left tackle spot, Chad Willard can generally work his way back from an injury. Plus, it's only been one practice, but former 2-year starter Lamar Dawson has bounced back from injury and looked really sharp at linebacker earlier this week. USC will need some help catching passes, and Cody Kessler was impressed with the immediate impact of Isaac Whitney, the transfer, and Juju Smith, who could replace Aguilar's 104 catches from last season. So that's all you need to know about USC football.
So we shift from the field to the sand as sand volleyball gets ready to kick off this weekend. To give us an inside perspective on how the team is preparing for the upcoming season, we welcome Sarah Hughes to Sports Scene. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So first question, you've had some time to reflect on last year. You were All-American as a freshman. You won a national championship in pairs. Take us through how you were able to succeed so quickly.
I took last year as a learning experience, definitely, because I came in as a freshman and I was paired up with a senior who kind of knew the ropes, and she taught me a lot of things and helped me understand what it was like to be on the #1 team and how to transition that into winning and ultimately winning a national championship.
And now you just mentioned she was a senior, so she's moved on. Now you have a new partner. How are you making that transition? Now you've been to that national stage. How are you teaching your partner, hey, this is what we need to do to be successful this year?
Yeah, so now I'm kind of like the leader of the team. So Kelly, who's going to be my partner, we're both sophomores together. And luckily we have played together through USA Volleyball, so we have a great connection. But it's also me trying to teach her, understanding, like, you know, this is the #1 team. Like, the whole team looks up to us. Like, we want to win every single game.
And as a team, you guys made it to the Final Four last year. How do you take that next step to national title?
You know, it was great winning an individual, like, pair title with Kirby, but it wasn't the same winning without the team. You know, you want the team behind you. You want that team unity, and we're going for it this year. We all have the same goals, and we're ready to get that ring.
So what is the difference between sand volleyball and indoor volleyball? Obviously, there's sand, and usually it's 2s instead of 6 on a court. But what are the intricacies beyond that?
Yeah, well, like you said, sand volleyball is only 2 people, so you need to know how to do everything. You need to know how to pass, set, hit, serve. Whereas indoor volleyball, you kind of just have one position and you stick with that. So if you're a libero, then you want to pass. But for sand volleyball, you got to be able to move in the sand. You got to be able to do every skill and, you know, execute that every day, because it's only you and your other partner. So if they serve you, you got to do what you got to do, and they serve them. So it's just teamwork and working together.
And when you were coming out of high school, you were one of the top volleyball recruits as a whole, but you said, hey, I just want to do sand volleyball. What was behind that decision?
Well, I actually started off playing sand volleyball when I was 8 years old, and the first time I stepped on the beach, I loved it. And then I made that transition to indoor volleyball, and I loved it just as much. But when I had that opportunity to play just sand in college, I looked at what I want to do in the future, and I want to play professional beach volleyball. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go with my heart, and I'm going to go on the sand, and it's the best decision I've ever made.
And you got to work with Misty May Trainer last year, Olympic gold medalist, one of the greatest sand volleyball players of all time. What did she teach you, and how did she impact your play early on?
Well, Misty has been my idol since I was 8 years old. She used to play on the same beach I did, so I would just go and watch her every day when she was at practice. And when, that first time she stepped in on the USC courts, I couldn't believe it. And it almost made me a little nervous at first, but since she's been through everything, 3 Olympic gold medals. So I like just talking to her about her experience and knowing what's going to happen for me to come. So, and then of course, skill-wise, she always helped me, took me to the side, told me little things I needed to do to fix my game.
And then outside of USC, you've traveled to Puerto Rico to play, Portugal to play. Where has been your favorite place to play, and where do you hope to travel to, either through volleyball or outside of volleyball?
I want to say my favorite place I've been to is Cyprus. It was such a great experience. I was with some of my best friends when I got to play and compete there. But I really want to go to Germany, and I don't know why. I just have family there, and hopefully I'll get to go there one day. And then actually our team is having an international trip this summer, and we're going to Austria, and I get to stay a few extra days because I have family and relatives there, so I can't wait for that opportunity.
Well, that's great, and good luck to you and the team this year. And this weekend is just the start of a long season, but hopefully a very successful season. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And now we shift from the sand to the hardwood, and we send it back over to Evan at the desk.
USC Hoops is looking forward to closing out its 2015 season with a bang when they take on crosstown rival UCLA in Westwood on Wednesday night. The Trojans won their last home game of the year against Washington on Saturday and hope to carry some of that momentum into next week's Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas.
We just have to go compete. UCLA is extremely talented, and they're a really good basketball team.
Welcome to this next edition of Trojan Horse here. Evan Budrovich rolling up the sleeves for this edition alongside Max Meyer and Jacob Friedman. Guys, the way the Pac-12 standings looks, USC is destined for the 12 seed unless some things fall their way. The opponent right now would be the Stanford Cardinal. Max, USC's played Stanford already twice this year and have lost. How does that matchup look with Stanford?
Well, Evan, in the 2 games that USC has played Stanford this year, the Trojans have only lost by single digits. And one of the big reasons is that USC has been able to take advantage of Stanford's zone defense because the Trojans' offense has been much more effective against zone compared to man-to-man defense. Also, USC's offense has improved slightly ever since Jordan McLaughlin got injured, and Julian Jacobs has been the primary floor general for the team. And I don't think that Stanford has anyone that has the athleticism and the quickness to match up with Julian Jacobs.
So, Jacob, 5 Pac-12 wins in just 2 years for Enfield. What is the optimism or the hope for this team coming into this tournament?
Despite those only 5 wins, it feels like this team is a lot more optimistic than they were at this point last year. Right now, USC is coming off a 15-point win. That's their biggest Pac-12 win under Andy Enfield's tenure. They destroyed Washington last week, and I think, as Andy Enfield mentioned in his press conference, this is really a chance to show people about the future. And you saw players were excited. Nikola Jovanovic, Julian Jacobs, they're sophomores. Next year is really going to be their time to shine. So I really think, Evan, this is a time for them to almost give us a preview for next year, even if they do manage to go out in only 1 game.
So, Max, based on that, then, is Stanford a good matchup for USC if they were to face?
Well, I think Stanford's an okay matchup. I think UCLA would be the worst matchup that USC could face, but I think the Trojans would rather face an Arizona State or an Oregon State just because the talent level isn't there. Stanford has NBA guys, Chasen Randall, Anthony Brown, even Nastich to a fault. Oregon State and Arizona State, they just simply don't have those guys.
So we know what Stanford has then, Jacob, but how does USC, if they face them, beat Stanford?
For me, the biggest thing comes down low with Nikola Jovanovic on Stanford center, Stefan Nashis. Nashis, 7-footer, averaging a little under 14 points, 7 rebounds. Nikola Jovanovic has struggled a little bit in the last couple of games, but in the Washington game, Evan, he really had a breakout performance. He had 15 points in the second half after not eclipsing that in the last month or so. So it's also going to be about defense. Nikola Jovanovic, he's not the kind of guy that's going to go in, block shots, and really throw Nastich for a loop, but if he can score on offense and make Nastich a little more tired while Nastich is on offense against Jovanovic in the paint, then that's going to be really big for USC to have a chance to upset Stanford.
And boys, real quick, we're all 3 going to Vegas next week for the tournament, so I do want a bold prediction about USC in the Pac-12 tournament.
I am going to bet that USC leads after halftime.
Jacobs?
My bet is that Julian Jacobs approaches a triple-double.
I'm going to say that USC loses another game by about 3 or 4 points, as they have in the last 2 Pac-12 tournaments. So that wraps it up here for Trojan Horse. We now kick it over to Lighting the Torch coming up.
Let's kick things off with women's basketball. The women of Troy are heading up to Seattle for the Pac-12 tournament. The defending Pac-12 champs are the 8th seed in the tournament, taking on 9th seed Colorado on Thursday. Whoever wins takes on top-seeded Oregon State on Friday in the quarterfinals. Moving along to men's volleyball, the 7th-ranked Trojans have 2 MPSF matchups after having a week off. Baseball took their first loss of the season Tuesday, falling 3-2 at UC Santa Barbara. But the Trojans will look to bounce back this weekend as they compete in the Dodgertown Classic against some tough competition. The Trojans will host TCU on Friday and Vanderbilt on Saturday before heading to Dodger Stadium to take on UCLA on Sunday afternoon. Also taking on the crosstown rivals is the women's tennis team, who head to Westwood for the match against the Bruins on Wednesday.
We know the team really well, so we're going to try and come out and be as prepared as we possibly can and do the best that we can to beat them.
The Trojans are ranked 3rd in the country and UCLA is 12th, setting up a big matchup that is sure to be heated. The Trojans will host San Diego State the following Wednesday. Coming off a 3rd-place finish in the Pac-12 championships, women's swimming has a few weeks to prepare for the NCAA championships in North Carolina.
I've just been practicing and doing all the normal stuff, just kind of really trying to just perfect my dive so that when I go to NC2As, it'll be really good.
The Trojans hope to maintain their season-building momentum in order to go out with a splash. Well, that's all from Lighting the Torch. Let's toss it back to Evan at the desk.
Thanks, Reed. Not every athlete at USC is a 5-star recruit, but that doesn't mean they're not worth covering. Here's Connor McGlynn at the Lions Center with this week's IM Game of the Week.
As February comes and goes, so does the basketball regular season, bringing you a winner moves on, loser goes home matchup out of the Advanced League between Bubs and Scrubs and CI Annenberg. From the opening possession, Bubs and Scrubs was able to dominate the interior with easy close-range shots. Annenberg found some relief with the 3-ball, but could not defend Santana Rosario's 20-point first-half performance.
We just want to have more time not studying. We're a bunch of med students, so if anything that can get us away, that's going to be the motivation enough.
Deja vu 3-pointers from Ben Albert helped erase a 20-point halftime deficit, but this layup sealed the win for Bubs as Sports Scene's own Ken Masinchi couldn't knock down the jumper at the buzzer.
I just want to knock it down. I forget, it was either Sean or Ben made a good play, threw it across court to me. I was wide open, and I just didn't knock it down. That's all it is.
You guys started the half on a 24-3 run to come back from that deficit. What was that like and the emotions going through your team?
Oh, it was amazing. Every shot was going in. Floaters, 3-pointers, anything and everything. That was cool. In all my basketball experience, that was one of the best runs I've ever seen.
Connor McGlynn, Sports Scene.
Our own Ben Albert put forth a great scoring effort for the Trojans, but unfortunately Ken Masinchi cost the team a victory. Now let's break it down even further. Our former D2 guard turned host struggled from the field over the weekend. He eventually scored 18 points though, but it sure wasn't easy to hit water from a sinking ship. Ken prides himself on shooting from the NBA 3-point line, which explains all those wonderful air balls. Sorry, Ken, I mean tough shots from the field. His team did come back from a 20-point deficit, so props there. But I'll leave out Ken's lifetime percentages from behind the arc. You know, buddy, I'll give you props for the comeback there, but you got to hit the shot.
All I know is every time I scored, I looked and the camera was closed or off. It's ridiculous. I'm baffled. Connor let me down, but that's okay. But while my basketball skills are now in question, what isn't in question is that March is full of filling out brackets and competing for championships. So at Sports Scene, we have created a bracket for the Trivia Crack Tournament, and it gets underway this week. Here's the bracket, some very interesting matchups, but the one to watch is the 1 versus 8 matchup between Max Meyer and Evan Budrovich. Don't be surprised if there's an upset there because Evan has skills that have been untapped. And a champion will be crowned at the end of the month. Stay tuned for bracket updates on next week's show. Thanks for joining us this week on Sports Scene from Studio C.
I'm the bracket buster, Evan Budrovich, here along with Ken Masinchi. Thank you guys once again as we get set for March Madness and the Vegas tournament for men's basketball.